Have you ever been in a room when the game is on and felt absolutely nothing? The volume is up. The commentators are shouting. Everyone's eyes are locked on the screen. There's tension in the air, the kind that tells you something important is happening. And yet, inside you, there's no spark, no pull, no sense of anticipation, just a quiet awareness that you're watching something meant for someone else. It's a strange moment, because you're not bored in the usual way. You understand what's happening. You know who's winning, who's losing. You can follow the rules if you need to, but emotionally, the signal doesn't land. It's like hearing a language you technically recognize, but don't think in. At first, this moment often comes with confusion. You wonder if something is wrong with you. Why does everyone else seem so alive right now, while you feel untouched? Why does this matter so deeply to them and not at all to you? Most people never pause here. They either force themselves to care, or quietly assume they're deficient. But this moment is worth slowing down. Because what if this isn't apathy? What if it's awareness? What if this is simply the instant you realize, this wasn't built for my nervous system, my attention, or the way I connect to meaning? That realization isn't a loss. It's the beginning of understanding how your mind actually works. Once you notice that the signal doesn't land for you, something else usually follows: how people react to that fact. In a culture where sports function as a shared language, not speaking it can quietly mark you as different. When someone asks, "Did you see the game last night?" and your answer falls flat, there's often a pause, a micro silence, sometimes a joke, sometimes a look that says, "Really?" And from that moment, assumptions start forming. You're antisocial, you're detached, you're trying to be different on purpose, or worse, you just don't get it. The lack of interest is interpreted as a lack of something essential, as if enthusiasm for the game were a basic emotional requirement for belonging. What's rarely considered is that disinterest isn't rejection, it isn't superiority, and it isn't emotional emptiness. It's simply a mismatch between what a culture treats as meaningful and what actually resonates with a particular mind. Psychologically, we're uncomfortable with people who don't mirror our excitement. Their neutrality feels like judgment, even when it isn't. So we label it, we pathologize it, we turn preference into defect. And that's where many people internalize the wrong story. They start to believe there's something missing in them, when in reality, nothing is broken. They're not resisting connection, they're just not connecting here. Understanding that distinction changes everything. To understand why sports hold such a powerful grip on so many people, you have to step far outside the stadium, back into human prehistory. For most of our existence, survival depended on belonging to a group. Your tribe was your protection. It determined whether you ate, whether you were defended, whether you lived long enough to pass your genes on. Being accepted meant safety. Being excluded meant danger. The human brain evolved to take this very seriously. Modern sports plug directly into that ancient wiring. At their core, sports create a clean, emotionally charged version of us versus them. Your city against theirs, your colors against theirs, your side against the enemy. The stakes feel high, even when nothing material is actually at risk, and your nervous system responds as if something real is happening. When a team wins, the brain releases dopamine and testosterone, chemicals associated with reward, dominance, and victory. When a team loses, stress hormones rise. Studies have shown that fans experience measurable hormonal shifts after games, mirroring the same biological patterns our ancestors experienced after successful hunts or territorial wins. This isn't metaphorical, it's physiological. The brain doesn't distinguish between a symbolic victory and a literal one. In 2008, Researchers even observed higher testosterone levels in men whose preferred political candidate won the US presidential election compared to those whose candidate lost. The context changes. The mechanism doesn't. Sports are effective because they offer a safe, socially sanctioned way to activate the tribal brain. You get the belonging, the emotional release, the shared identity without the physical danger that once came with it. For many people, this feels grounding, energizing, and none of that is accidental. It's the result of systems built to speak fluently to one of them. When the answer doesn't feel real or reciprocal, the signal fades, not out of cynicism but out of clarity. This doesn't mean they reject belonging. It means they're selective about it. Their tribal instinct is reserved for places where connection feels mutual, stable, and meaningful. Communities built around ideas, around craft, around shared purpose that doesn't reset every season. So when the tribal switch doesn't flip, it's not indifference, it's discernment. For many people, this difference doesn't suddenly appear in adulthood. It forms quietly, long before anyone ever asks, "So, who's your team?" Our nervous systems are shaped early by what feels safe, regulating, and meaningful in the environments we grow up in. In some families, sports are a bonding ritual, weekends revolve around games, emotions are shared openly, and excitement is contained within predictable rhythms. For a child in that setting, sports become associated with connection and safety. But that isn't every childhood. Some people grow up in homes where noise already meant tension. Raised voices didn't signal celebration, they signaled conflict. Crowded rooms weren't energizing, they were overwhelming. In those environments, the nervous system learns to stay alert, not to relax into collective excitement. High stimulation doesn't feel fun. It feels like something to manage. Others grow up in families where emotional connection wasn't built around shared spectacles at all. Attention came through conversation, creativity, work, or quiet presence. Meaning was found in depth, not volume. In those homes, identity formed around internal worlds rather than external displays. Over time, the brain adapts. It begins to associate safety with focus, solitude, or one-on-one engagement rather than group intensity. This isn't avoidance, it's regulation. The nervous system is doing exactly what it learned to do. There's also a subtler layer. Some children learn early that emotional investment without control can be risky. When outcomes are unpredictable, or when disappointment isn't well held, the brain becomes cautious about attaching itself to things it can't influence. Watching others win or lose on your behalf may never feel rewarding if your system prioritizes agency over spectacle. So by the time adulthood arrives, the orientation is already set. Not because something went wrong, but because something adapted. The preference for depth over display, for creation over consumption, is often the quiet imprint of a nervous system that learned what it needed to feel stable. One of the least discussed reasons some people never fall into sports obsession has nothing to do with emotion at all. It has to do with capacity. Your brain has limited cognitive real estate. There's only so much space available for deep investment, things you track, remember, care about, and return to over time. Being a real fan isn't passive. It requires learning rosters, histories, strategies, statistics, rivalries, and storylines that stretch across years. It's not just watching, it's maintaining a mental archive. For many people, that archive is already full. Some minds allocate their attention early to systems instead of spectacles. They learn how markets move, how music is structured, how tools work, how ideas connect. Others invest in mastery, building a craft, refining a skill, understanding something most people skim past. Their attention doesn't scatter, it consolidates. From this angle, disinterest in sports isn't a failure to engage, it's a prior commitment. The passion slot is occupied, and somewhere along the way, often unconsciously, there's a calculation. Time spent memorizing stats, versus time spent developing a capability. Emotional energy tied to outcomes you can't influence versus energy invested where effort compounds. Neither choice is morally superior, but they are fundamentally different orientations. People who don't follow sports haven't opted out of focus. They've concentrated it. Their minds are already running long games, projects, pursuits, systems that don't reset every season. The stadium isn't empty. It's simply hosting something else. Understanding this reframes the question. It's not why don't you care? It's what did you care about instead? There's a reason watching sports can feel almost physical, even when you're sitting completely still. Inside your brain are cells called mirror neurons. They activate not only when you perform an action, but when you watch someone else perform it. This is why you flinch when you see someone fall. Why your muscles tense when an athlete sprints toward the finish line. Neurologically, you're not just observing, you're simulating. When a quarterback throws a perfect pass, or a striker scores a decisive goal, the same motor and reward circuits light up in the spectator's brain as if they were the one making the play. On some level, the brain experiences the victory as shared, borrowed. This is one of the engines behind sports obsession. But mirror neurons don't fire indiscriminately. They require identification. You have to see yourself in the person you're watching. You have to feel a psychological bridge that could be me, or that represents me. Without that bridge, the simulation weakens. The emotional payoff never fully arrives. For people who don't obsess over sports, this system still works. It just attaches elsewhere. Their mirror neurons might light up watching a musician execute a difficult passage, a craftsman shape raw material into something precise, or a thinker articulate an idea with clarity and depth. The surge is the same. The target is different. The difference isn't emotional capacity. It's chosen heroes. Some people borrow their sense of motion and meaning from athletes on a field. Others borrow it from creators, builders, and explorers of ideas. The question was never whether they could feel that vicarious thrill. It was always who they felt connected enough to feel it with. Beneath the jokes, the small talk, and the polite nodding along, there's a layer most people never admit to carrying. Shame. Not loud shame, quiet shame. The kind that shows up when you're asked, again. If you watch the game and you already know your answer will create distance, so you soften it, you hedge, you say, I didn't really catch it, instead of the truth. It didn't move me at all. Over time, these moments accumulate. You start to feel slightly misaligned with the room, like you're always half a step out of sync with what everyone else finds exciting. And because humans are social learners, your brain starts searching for the problem. Why don't I feel this? Why does it seem so easy for everyone else? In a culture that treats shared enthusiasm as proof of normalcy, neutrality can feel like a flaw. Disinterest gets misread as judgment. Silence gets mistaken for emptiness. And slowly, many people internalize the idea that something is missing in them. But shame thrives on misattribution. What's actually happening isn't emotional deficiency, it's mismatch. Your nervous system isn't broken. Your attention isn't cold. They're just not designed to light up on command for collective spectacle. The shame comes from comparing internal truth to external expectation. Once that distinction becomes clear, the weight begins to lift. You're not failing to participate. You're participating differently. And there is nothing defective about a system that refuses to fake enthusiasm for belonging. It's important to say this clearly. There is nothing wrong with the way sports pull people out of their daily lives. For many, a big game is a sanctioned pause. For a few hours, work disappears. Worries soften. Attention narrows to something simple and shared. Time collapses. In psychological terms, that's absorption, a state not unlike meditation. And for a lot of people, it's healthy. But absorption isn't exclusive to stadiums and screens. People who don't follow sports aren't immune to the need for escape. They just find it through different doors. In the workshop, where hours pass without being noticed. In the studio, where hands move before thoughts catch up. In writing, coding, building any place where the mind becomes fully present and the outside world fades. The difference isn't escape versus engagement. It's the direction of the energy. Watching a game absorbs attention outward into someone else's performance and outcome. Other forms of absorption pull attention inward into creation, problem solving, or refinement. One consumes a finished narrative, the other lives inside an unfolding one. Neither path is superior. They regulate different nervous systems in different ways. For some people, collective excitement restores balance. For others, quiet immersion does the same. What matters is the effect, the sense of presence, the temporary relief from self-consciousness, the feeling that, for a while, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. People who don't choose sports haven't rejected escape. They've simply chosen forms of absorption that leave something behind when the moment ends. When you step back and look at the whole picture, a quiet truth begins to settle in. People who don't obsess over sports aren't standing outside of life, watching it pass by. They're participating, just not in the most visible way. While some invest their attention in shared spectacles, others invest it in slow, personal arenas that don't come with crowds or commentary. Their silence during the game isn't emptiness, it's concentration. It's a mind turned towards something it's building, refining, or trying to understand. Something that won't be decided by a final score or reset when the season ends. This isn't about rejecting joy, community, or tradition. Most people who don't follow sports understand the appeal completely. They see the laughter, the bonding, the release it gives their friends. They just know, with a calm certainty, that their energy belongs somewhere else. Attention is the most valuable resource you have. Where you point it shapes the kind of person you become. Some people point it toward watching championships unfold. Others point it toward creating something that didn't exist before. That difference doesn't make one path better than the other, but it does explain why the signal never landed and why it never needed to. If this video put words to something you felt but never quite articulated, you're not alone. I'd love to hear your experience. Drop a comment and share where your attention naturally goes instead. And if you want more conversations like this about the quiet patterns of the human mind, the things we don't usually name, consider subscribing to the channel. We explore these spaces together.